Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm diving into something that has been both exciting and challenging, my first Godot prototype. As you might know, this series is about creating a parkour game in Godot. In order to do that, I will need two things. First, learn Godot. Secondly, make a prototype. So today, I'm sharing something that has been both exciting and challenging. What started as a simple way to learn the engine turned into a roller coaster of lessons. And here is why. First, I needed to define what is the scope of this game. In other words, what I will do and not do in this game. This is something that a lot of game developers tend to forget because they just tend to add new features again and again without thinking about when it's gonna end. So if there is one thing you must remember for your game is keep it simple. And this is especially true if this is your first game or your first time in a game engine. Since this is my first time in Godot, the main features that I wanted to implement are a main menu, being able to pause the game, having a game over, having a first-person controller, and finally, having a save system. I think that these features are more than enough in order to build a game from start to finish. Thanks to that, I will be able to learn Gdscript and compare it with C#, learn UI, scene transition, basic gameplay features, how to use signals, this is a word that I heard a lot when I was learning Godot, and basically how to use the engine. There are of course a lot of things that I won't do in this prototype, but I will do them in the final game, don't worry. For example, in the prototype I won't dig into VFX, particles, shaders, terrains, things like that, but maybe I will do it in the final game. So here we are in Godot 4. You might be wondering how experienced developers do when they have to learn a new game engine. Well, I'm gonna tell you the truth guys, we also search for tutorials like everyone. Thankfully, I was able to find this amazing first-person controller tutorial from Lucky where I teach how to create a very simple but effective one. But the thing is that it was doing it in Godot script and me, I wanted to do it in C#, so I thought that this would be a good exercise in order to see what are the differences between C# and Gdscript. I found that doing the same thing in C# requires more lines of code. So basically that's the same logic. Anyone who used to write Gdscript is able to read the C# code, and anyone who used to do C# will be able to read the Gdscript. It's just that sometimes you see something done in Gdscript and you have to find how to do it, but the C# way. Most of the resources that I found were written in Gdscript, so thankfully the Godot documentation was amazing. You can easily switch any part of the documentation from Gdscript to C#, and you also have a whole page explaining what are the differences between Gdscript and C# if you would like to do the same thing. After that, I wanted to fix a few things that I didn't like in the initial controller. For example, I wanted to be able to jump and then slide when I reach the floor. Also, I don't know if I missed something or not, but I was able to change my speed in the air by pressing the sprint button. So a few minor things like that, but I was super happy about the results. Then I needed to create a countdown that will kill the player when it reaches 0. I was still thinking the Unity way. In other words, I was thinking, okay, so I must create a game object, have a script component. In this script, I will have a reference to the game object that I want and start a timer using my code, and when it reaches 0, it must notify the game object by calling a No. Godot has a node for everything you need. Surprisingly, I just needed to add a timer node, configure the countdown as needed, and it will emit a signal when it will reach 0. That was easy. The last thing that I needed to do is make sure that the player is listening to that signal, and voila. I really started to like Godot at this moment. And to be honest, I really enjoy how signals works in Godot, that this is something very powerful. You don't need to have direct references to your game object or nodes, you just emit signals or listen to signals. So there is less dependencies between objects. Now I had my player movement, I was able to kill the player, so what was the next step? Well, what I needed right now is a game over screen. So it was time to play with Godot's UI system. After experimenting, I found that the UI system of Godot was very similar to what you can find on web development, especially if you use Flutter before. Basically, you use nodes instead of widgets in order to compose your UI tree. For the UI part, I decided to try Gdscript. I thought that it will be easier to manage different references that I will have in my tree. Moreover, with Gdscript, I don't need to rebuild the project every time I make a change. Finally, I thought that the UI was less demanding in terms of power. Basically, my initial idea was to have everything linked to the gameplay made in C# and everything for the UI in Gdscript. That way, I was able to experiment different cases and decide later what I will do with each programming language. And if you want to know my point of view in a deep comparison between C# and Gdscript, drop a comment below and I will make a video about it. But anyway, what you must know about the UI is that everything is defined inside a theme. So basically, you define what you would like your buttons to be, and then you can reuse the theme everywhere across your game. So that's good because you can easily reuse components and build your UI in a consistent way. However, I think it's harder to build stylized UI like those that you can find in Persona games, for example. It's not impossible though. I found online some very stylized UI made by the community, so it proved that it's still possible. But for this prototype, I was just overriding the theme everywhere I needed to. I think this is one of my mistakes that I've made during this prototype. But I will keep that in mind and avoid doing this in my final game. In my next video, I will go deeper into all the mistakes that I've made during this prototype to make sure that I will not do them again. For example, when I was managing my scene transitions, I was hard-coding some string with the level's name. I also created a lot of references when I was referencing some nodes in the UI. And I found it very difficult to mix Gdscript and C#. Like, when I wanted them to communicate, it was a lot harder. Like, not impossible, but harder. For instance, I wanted to group all my strings into a single place, like a single script, and I did not manage to find a way to do it in either C# or Gdscript. When I was doing it in C#, it was working in every C# script, and when I was doing it in Gdscript, I was able to use it in every Gdscript. There must be a way to do it, but I did not find it yet, so this is something I will work on for the final game. So for the moment, we have the player movement, we have a way to kill it, and we have some UI and menus. In the next video, I will go deeper into the mistakes that I've made, my conclusion about this prototype, and then I will jump into my final game. I hope that you liked this video. This is a new series for me, a new format for you, so don't hesitate to drop a comment and give me some feedbacks. That being said, I hope to see you in the next video, so take care and see you next time.